Hi everyone. In today's geometry lesson from Unit 3.1, we'll be discussing two more trigonometric functions, and they are called the sine and cosine functions. So if you take a look at our triangle, we've got triangle ABC, and you see some angles marked with 26 degrees, 64 degrees, and then angle B is our right angle. It says suppose you wanted to find the lengths of the legs, which are x and y in the picture. Alright, say we wanted to find the lengths of those sides. Could we use the tangent ratio? Well, let's check it out. For angle A, the 26-degree angle, x is the opposite side, or opposite leg, and y is the adjacent leg. So our tangent function would look like this. Tangent of 26 degrees equals x over y. Well, unfortunately, we have two unknowns in that equation, so it's not something that we can solve. Check out what happens when we take a look at angle C in the picture. Angle C is marked with 64 degrees, and that means that the side marked with Y is the opposite side, and the side marked with X is the adjacent side. Again, check out what happens if we try to write an equation using tangent. We would say the tangent of 64 degrees is equal to y over x. Again, we're stuck. We can't solve either of these two equations for x or for y, so we have to come up with a different way to solve for x and y. Alright, recall that the side that's opposite the right angle in a triangle is called the hypotenuse. And we have our two new trig functions, the sine of the angle and the sine of the angle, and we'll say the sine of angle A, that's equal to the ratio of the opposite leg over the hypotenuse. And the cosine of angle A is equal to the ratio of the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. Now, just like we did with the tangent function, we can abbreviate these two. So sine is abbreviated to sin of angle A, just use the capital A, and it's equal to the opposite, OPP, over hypotenuse. Cosine is abbreviated to COS, so we have cosine of angle A is equal to the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. Now we have a little trick to help us remember all of our trig functions. We have a little saying in math, and it goes like this. So, S-O-H, Ka, C-A-H, Toa, T-O-A. Okay, so SOH stands for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's what you see right here. Ka stands for cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's what you see here. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So you could say tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Now remember, all three of these trig functions are ratios of sides in a right triangle. Okay, we're going to start with a little bit of practice from your calculator. So if you go to your calculator, make sure you're in degree mode, or you can use the trig table for this too, but most likely you'll be using a calculator. You want to do sine 30 degrees. So press the sine key, type in 30 degrees, and we're going to round our decimals to the nearest 10,000th. So remember that that's 4 places, 4 decimal places. On the first one though, sine of 30, we just get 0.5. For cosine of 45, you should see 0.7071, so give it a try. And for sine of 78 degrees, that's equal to 0.9781. In our second example, this is find the values of x and y in the triangle at the top of the page, round to the nearest degree. So let's take a look. So recall that our triangle was triangle ABC, where angle B was our right angle. Angle A had a measure of 26 degrees. C has a measure of 64 degrees. The side opposite A was X, and the side opposite C was Y, and our hypotenuse was 13. Okay, we have a couple of different ways in which we can solve for X and for Y. If I wanted to use this angle A right here, 26 degrees, I can work with the sine of angle A to solve for X, because X is the opposite side to my angle, and 13 is the hypotenuse. Remember that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we can say the sine of 26 degrees equals the opposite side X over the hypotenuse of 13. Now recall, this is just a proportion that we're going to solve. You could put the sine of 26 over 1 and then cross multiply to solve your proportion. So take X times 1, that gives you X. On the other side of the equal sign, take 13 times the sine of 26. Okay, so this is where we're going to go to the calculator and type it in. Just as you see it right here, put the 13 first, then press sine, then press 26. If you're working with your smartphone, you have to do things slightly differently, okay? And what you would have to do in this case, if you are working with your phone and you have it in scientific mode, you would type in the angle first, then press sine, okay, hit equals, and then do multiply by 13. Okay, so we'll practice that in class, but if you've done it correctly, then you should have 5.7 for X. Okay, you have to make a choice now as to how you want to solve for Y. You can continue to work with that angle A of 26 degrees. Y is the adjacent side. 13 is still the hypotenuse. If we're talking about adjacent and hypotenuse, we must be talking about the cosine of the angle. So we want to say cosine of 26 equals the adjacent side Y over the hypotenuse of 13. And again, treat it as a proportion, so put cosine 26 over 1 and cross multiply. Y times the 1 will just give you Y. That's equal to 13 cosine 26. You're ready to go to your calculator. And when you do so, you're going to get 11.7. And our directions did say to round to the nearest, should say round to the nearest tenth, okay? So I have a typo here, it should say tenth. Okay, in our third example, we want to find the measure of angle A in each triangle. This is round answers to the nearest degree. Okay, so notice that angle A is right here. The two sides that I've labeled are the opposite leg, because I went all the way across the triangle to get to that side, so it's the opposite side. 14 is the hypotenuse. Now remember, you have three trig functions to choose from. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So depending on your information, that determines which trig function you want to use. Okay, so go back to this one. We have the opposite and hypotenuse labeled for us. So I know I want to use sine. So I would write the sine of angle A equals 6, the opposite side, over 14, the hypotenuse. Okay, we're looking for an angle measure, so we need to use the inverse sine of 6 divided by 14. That's going to equal angle A. So you have to press the second key, then the sine key, then 6 divided by 14 on your calculator. And when you do that, it'll give you your angle measure, and A is about 25 degrees if we round to the nearest integer like the directions say. And question B, take a look at where angle A is. It's up here. This side is my hypotenuse. This side is the adjacent side. If we're working with adjacent and hypotenuse, we want to work with cosine. So you can say the cosine of angle A is equal to the ratio of the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Again, since we're looking for an angle measure, we need to use the inverse function. Inverse cosine, 15 divided by 17. Go to your calculator. Second cosine, 15 divided by 17, hit enter, and A is equal to 28 degrees when we round to the nearest integer. Okay, good luck on the CYU and your homework. As always, speak up if you have questions, and see your teacher if you need extra help.